I learned later that the Galactic Council had spent 6 hours arguing about worlds that had simply vanished. At the time, I was 300 light-years away, repairing a coolant relay aboard Port Mason. The Council was older than most human nations. 47 civilizations occupied its chamber, many of them descended from species that had been traveling between stars before humanity had discovered electricity. To them, humans were useful, young, practical, occasionally inventive, but insignificant. Then the disappearances began. Entire worlds stopped transmitting. No battles, no debris, no warning. They simply became silent. The Council argued over weapons, dimensional failures, ancient enemies. Nobody had an answer. Then a survey drone near New Carthage discovered something drifting in deep space. A vessel nearly 4 kilometers long. Its hull was dark blue-green, absorbing the light around it. Its name, given by the survey system, was ASTRA-9. The scans revealed something impossible. The ship was more than 30,000 years old. 5 research teams attempted to enter it. All 5 failed. Cutting tools did nothing. Plasma left no mark. Explosives accomplished nothing. The Council finally stopped sending scientists. Instead, they requested a salvage specialist. That was how my name appeared on their list. Ethan Cole, human, technician. I wasn't famous. I wasn't military. I wasn't an explorer. I repaired machinery. My orders were simple. Board ASTRA-9. Determine its value. Recover anything useful. If possible, begin dismantling it. I read the assignment once. Then I asked for my tools. I didn't know it yet, but somewhere inside that ancient vessel, something had already recognized my name. The transport dropped me at New Carthage 6 days after I accepted the contract. I expected a military operation. Instead, I found a research platform orbiting a yellow star, surrounded by 12 Council vessels and enough sensor equipment to monitor a moon from across the system. Everyone was watching ASTRA-9. I understood why when I saw it. The ancient vessel hung beyond the platform, almost invisible against the stars. At 4 kilometers long, it should have dominated the sky. Instead, its dark blue-green hull swallowed reflected light so completely that parts of it seemed to disappear whenever I looked away. I stared at it through the observation window. That's the ship? The station supervisor, a Keelan named Vero, stood beside me. That SASTRA-9. It doesn't look 30,000 years old. Nothing survives that long. He paused. Apparently, it does. The first 5 teams had left behind a mountain of equipment. Cutting rigs, plasma projectors, molecular scanners, remote drones. All of it had been abandoned after failing to produce a single useful result. I asked Vero why they had not destroyed the vessel. He looked at me strangely. Destroyed it with what? That was a fair question. My shuttle was waiting in Dock 3. It was small, ugly, and completely ordinary. A repair craft with 4 maneuvering thrusters, a compact cargo bay, and a mechanical tool cabinet bolted beside the pilot's seat. I preferred it that way. Advanced equipment had already failed. I trusted tools I understood. Before departure, Vero handed me the Council's final instructions. Do not activate anything. Understood. Do not remove anything until the research team approves it. Understood. If the vessel begins transmitting, return immediately. I looked at him. What if it opens? He hesitated. Then enter. I nodded. He seemed relieved. 10 minutes later, I was alone. My shuttle crossed the distance between the platform and Astra 9 in silence. As I approached, the scale became difficult to comprehend. The vessel was not merely large. It was built on a scale that suggested its creators had expected to move entire populations through space. There were no visible docking ports, no windows, no markings, no obvious weapons. I brought the shuttle alongside the hull and began my first scan. The computer returned an error. I tried again. Another error. I switched to manual instruments. The hull temperature was nearly identical to the surrounding vacuum. There was no detectable power source, no active machinery, no electromagnetic field, nothing. A dead ship. I smiled faintly. That was good. Dead ships were easier to repair. I opened the tool cabinet and removed a mechanical inspection unit. Then I noticed something. A line had appeared across the hull. It was so narrow I almost missed it. I leaned closer. The line moved, not across the surface. Through it, a section of ASTRA-9 was opening. And for the first time in 30,000 years, something inside the ancient ship had begun to wake. The opening stopped after less than a meter. I waited. Nothing else happened. The hull remained perfectly still, the narrow seam glowing with a faint blue light that my instruments could not identify. I transmitted the discovery to the research platform. No answer came immediately. Then every channel activated at once. "Ethan, step away from the vessel." It was Vero. His voice was no longer calm. I looked through the shuttle window at the opening. "Why? We don't know what triggered it." "Neither do I." "Then leave." I considered that. The Council had sent 5 teams here. They had spent millions of credits trying to open ASTRA-9. Now a piece of the hull had opened because I had touched it with a diagnostic scanner. Walking away seemed inefficient. "I want to inspect it." "Ethan, that is not an instruction." "I know." I heard several voices arguing behind him. Someone demanded that my shuttle be recalled. Someone else wanted a military team deployed. Then the transmission cut. I looked at the opening again. There was no reason to enter. That was obvious. There was also no reason to believe the ship was harmless. That was equally obvious. But there was one detail I could not explain. The opening had appeared exactly where my scanner had touched the hull. I maneuvered closer. The blue light intensified. My computer registered a pressure change inside the shuttle. Then the external temperature dropped by 12 degrees. I stopped the approach. Something was happening. I switched to mechanical instruments and extended the inspection arm. The arm passed through the opening without resistance. No sparks. No warning. No reaction. I moved it slowly. The sensor returned a hollow space beyond the hull. Then another reading appeared. Air. Breathable air. 30,000-year-old ship. No visible power. No detectable atmosphere. And suddenly there was oxygen behind a door that had not existed a minute earlier. I suited up. The Council would probably have preferred that I waited for a research team. I understood their position. I ignored it. I opened the shuttle hatch. The moment I crossed into the opening, the blue light spread along the walls. A corridor appeared ahead of me. It was enormous. The ceiling vanished into darkness above, while smooth black walls stretched farther than my flashlight could reach. There were no control panels, no markings, no machinery, only a faint line of light running along the floor. I took one step. The light ahead of me activated. I took another. Another section illuminated. Behind me, the lights went dark. I stopped. The corridor stopped with me. For several seconds, nothing moved. Then I heard something. It wasn't a mechanical sound. It sounded almost like breathing. I raised my flashlight. The beam disappeared into the darkness. And somewhere far inside Astra 9, something quietly answered. I stood in the corridor for several seconds, listening. There was no machinery, no ventilation, no distant hum from engines. Yet the sound remained. Slow, regular, almost like breathing. I raised my helmet recorder and whispered, "ASTRA-9, can you hear me?" Nothing happened. I waited. Then the lights ahead moved. Not physically. They simply appeared farther down the corridor, as though the ship had extended itself while I was standing still. I checked my navigation system. The shuttle was 23 meters behind me. The corridor ahead measured 41 meters. I walked forward. The distance changed. My scanner now reported 60 meters. I stopped again. The corridor stopped with me. That was when I understood something important. The ship was not malfunctioning. It was reacting. I turned around. The entrance was gone. Where I had entered, there was now a smooth section of black wall. I touched it with my glove. Solid. I tapped twice. The sound disappeared into the material. That's inconvenient, I said. My communicator remained connected to the research platform, but the signal was weak. I tried transmitting. Ethan Cole to New Carthage Control. I am inside. The entrance has closed. Static answered. Then Barrow's voice appeared for less than a second. Cole, get out. The transmission vanished. I stood alone inside a vessel older than human civilization. For the first time, I considered the possibility that entering Astra 9 had been a mistake. Then a light appeared beneath my boots. A thin golden line. It extended forward. I followed it. The corridor changed as I walked. The walls became taller. The floor widened. Arches appeared where there had been nothing before. I stopped beside one and examined it. The material was unlike anything in the Council database. It was metal, but not entirely. Part of it behaved like ceramic. Part of it behaved like something alive. My scanner couldn't classify it. Then the ship made another sound. This time it came from everywhere. A low vibration passed through the walls and into my body. My visor displayed a warning. Unknown energy event. The warning disappeared. A door opened ahead. Beyond it was a vast chamber. I stepped inside. The room was almost completely dark. Then, one by one, thousands of small lights appeared overhead. They formed patterns across the ceiling. Stars, not real stars. Images, constellations I recognized. Others I didn't. I looked up as the patterns shifted. One constellation expanded. A system appeared. Then another. Then hundreds. The display showed worlds, civilizations, cities, ships, and every image eventually ended the same way. Darkness. I watched silently. Astra 9 was showing me something. Not history. A warning. Then the final image appeared. A single planet. Blue. White clouds. One moon. Earth. I froze. The lights went out. A voice spoke inside my helmet. It was not human, but somehow, I understood it. You are late. I did not move. The voice had spoken only 4 words, but they remained inside my helmet as clearly as if someone were standing beside me. You are late. I looked around the chamber. There was nobody there. I checked the air. Normal. Temperature. Normal. Radiation. Normal. My suit reported nothing unusual except the fact that my heart rate had increased enough to trigger a medical notification. I dismissed it. Who are you? I asked. The chamber remained dark. Then the golden lights returned. This time they formed a circle around me. A sphere appeared in the center of the room. It was black, perfectly smooth, about 3 meters across. Golden patterns covered its surface, moving slowly beneath the material like lines of liquid fire. I approached it carefully. My scanner failed again. I tried a passive reading. Nothing. No heat. No radiation. No electromagnetic field. It should not have existed. I reached toward it. My glove stopped a few centimeters from the surface. Something had changed. The sphere was producing gravity. Not enough to pull me toward it, but enough that dust on the floor began moving in tiny circles around my boots. I should have backed away. Instead, I touched it. The chamber disappeared. I was standing beneath a sky filled with stars. I could breathe. I could move, but I knew immediately that I wasn't really there. I was seeing a memory. A city stretched across an entire continent. Towers rose hundreds of kilometers into the sky, connected by bridges that glowed like rivers of sunlight. Millions of beings moved through the streets. They were not human. They had tall, narrow bodies and pale skin that shimmered beneath the artificial sun. Their civilization was enormous, peaceful, from what I could see. There were no armies, no battles, no burning cities. Instead, I saw scientists, engineers, children, families. Then I saw the ship. Astra 9 was being constructed inside a vast orbital facility. Thousands of workers moved around its hull. It was not a warship. There were no weapon bays, no missile systems, no armor designed for combat. It was an ark, a vessel built to preserve knowledge, libraries, scientific archives, biological records, languages, history. The memory shifted. The city was empty. The orbital facility was abandoned. Millions of beings were gone. I watched another scene. Ships were leaving the planet. Not fleeing. Leaving peacefully. Entire populations boarded vessels and departed their world. They did not take ASTRA-9. They left it behind. Waiting. The vision changed again. Different species approached the ship. Hundreds of them. Some were advanced. Some primitive. Some arrived with fleets. None were accepted. The ship remained silent. Then another vessel appeared. Small. Crude. Human. I saw a figure walk toward ASTRA-9. The memory blurred around the face. I stepped closer. The figure turned. I saw my own face. Then the chamber returned. I fell to one knee. The sphere remained in front of me. Golden patterns moved across its surface. A final message appeared in the air. The archive has found its keeper. I stared at the words. Then another line appeared. The silence is returning. I remained on one knee for several seconds. The message in the air had disappeared, but I could still see it in my mind. The silence is returning. I had no idea what that meant. I also had no idea why the ship had shown me Earth. I stood and approached the black sphere again. It was completely inactive now. Who built you? I asked. Nothing. What happened to them? Still nothing. I waited. Then the sphere produced a single pulse. My suit alarms activated, not because of radiation, because something enormous had appeared outside the ship. I turned toward the chamber entrance. The walls became transparent. For the first time, I could see through Astra 9's hull. New Carthage filled the darkness beyond it. The research platform was there. So were the council vessels. But every ship had begun transmitting at once. My communicator erupted with overlapping voices. Ethan, respond. Get out of the vessel. They detected an energy discharge. All ships are moving to defensive positions. Something is coming through the outer system. I moved toward the wall. Astra 9 showed me the stars. One by one, points of light disappeared. Not dimmed, disappeared. The darkness spread between the stars like ink dropped into water. I watched it advance. The research platform detected it too. Its sensors began reporting gravitational distortions across the system. Then every transmission stopped. Silence filled my helmet. For several seconds, I heard nothing. Then a new signal appeared. It did not come from ASTRA-9. It came from somewhere beyond New Carthage. A sequence of pulses crossed the system. 3, then 5, then 7. My suit translated the pattern automatically. It was not language. It was mathematics. A coordinate sequence. I copied it into my navigation system. The computer rejected it. Invalid spatial reference, it reported. I tried again. The system accepted it. A three-dimensional map appeared. The coordinates pointed beyond known council territory. Far beyond it, the display continued expanding until the map showed regions of space that had never been charted. Then a red marker appeared. Last known contact. I stared at it. The location was surrounded by nothing. No stars. No colonies. No registered systems. Just empty space. Another message appeared. We left because it found us. I felt cold despite the suit. Who? The answer came immediately. The silence. The chamber went dark. Then Astra 9 awakened. For the first time, I felt the ancient vessel move. Not violently. Not suddenly. It simply began to breathe. Deep inside the ship, systems came online one after another. Engines, navigation, power, doors opened throughout the vessel. And somewhere behind me, a voice spoke again. Ethan Cole, humanity has been identified. I turned toward the sphere. Begin the inheritance. The first thing I noticed was the sound. Astra 9 had been silent for 30,000 years, yet now it sounded alive. Deep vibrations moved through the deck beneath my boots. Somewhere beyond the walls, enormous mechanisms began turning. The lights returned, brighter than before, and the corridor seemed to expand around me. Then my communicator came back online. Ethan, this is Commander Brooks aboard the Franklin. We have you on visual. I looked toward the transparent wall. A warship had entered the system. The USS Franklin was 3 times the size of the research platform and carried enough weapons to destroy a small fleet. "Commander," I said, "you should hold position. We detected the energy discharge from ASTRA-9. So did I. We are taking control of the vessel." I looked at the black sphere. "No." There was a pause. Then Brooks answered, "That wasn't TA request." The connection ended. I didn't argue. There was no point. Astra 9 opened a passage ahead of me. I followed it. Behind me, the entrance remained sealed. Outside, the Franklin moved closer. Its weapons systems activated. I could see them through the hull. Missile batteries, kinetic cannons, directed energy weapons. The ship was preparing for a boarding operation. Then the Franklin launched its soldiers. They entered Astra 9 through the same opening I had used. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the corridor changed. I watched the soldiers advance through the passage. 10 meters, 20, 30. Then the lights went out. A second later, they returned. The soldiers were standing outside the ship. All of them, uninjured, confused. They had been returned to the docking platform without traveling backward. The Franklin tried again. The result was identical. Commander Brooks contacted me. "What did you do?" "Nothing." "Then tell your ship to stop." "It's not my ship." I heard someone speaking in the background. Then Brooks returned. "We retesting the hull." I understood immediately. Dawn, T. The Franklin fired. The kinetic projectile crossed the distance between the ships in less than a second. It struck ASTRA-9. Nothing happened. No explosion. No damage. The projectile simply stopped. Then Astra 9 awakened completely. Every light across the vessel turned white. The engines ignited. The stars outside bent. And every communication channel in the new Carthage system activated simultaneously. A voice emerged from ASTRA-9. It was ancient, calm, and somehow, every species understood it. "The inheritor has arrived." The galaxy listened. I stood alone inside the ancient ship. For the first time, I understood that the Council had never discovered ASTRA-9. Astra 9 had discovered us. And it had been waiting. The voice disappeared. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then every vessel in the system began receiving the same transmission. There was no language attached to it. No identification code. No origin point. Just a sequence of images. The first showed a planet. It was covered in enormous cities, glowing beneath a violet sky. The second showed the same planet empty. The third showed another world. Then another. Hundreds appeared. Some were familiar from Council records. Others had never been documented. Every civilization had something in common. They were gone. The images continued. Ships departing worlds. Colonies being abandoned. Entire populations leaving their home systems without fighting. Then the final image appeared. A field of stars. One by one, the stars went dark. I heard Commander Brooks speaking through the communicator. "Ethan, what is this?" "I don't know." "You inside the ship." "That doesn't mean I understand it." The transmission changed. A single sentence appeared across every screen in the system. "We were not destroyed." Another sentence followed. "We left. Then. We were running out of places to go." The Franklin went silent. I watched the stars beyond ASTRA-9. Nothing moved. Then a new image appeared. A vast black region surrounded by distorted space. The coordinates were impossible. The darkness seemed to bend light around itself. A label appeared beneath it. The silence. I felt something tighten in my chest. The ancient intelligence continued. It does not conquer. It does not destroy. It prevents. The next sequence showed civilizations developing faster than light travel. Then their communications failed. Their scientific progress slowed. Their ships stopped improving. Their populations declined. Eventually, their worlds became quiet. No battles. No explosions. Just stagnation. Then another message appeared. The silence learns. Every civilization that resists makes it stronger. I looked toward the sphere. "So you built Astra 9 to escape it?" The answer came immediately. "No. A pause. We built Astra 9 to find someone who could continue after we were gone. The final image appeared, a human hand touching the black sphere. My hand. I stepped backward. Outside, the Franklin's weapons powered down. Commander Brooks spoke quietly. Ethan. Yes? We receiving something from the Council. I waited. Their orders are to secure ASTRA 9. I looked at the ancient walls surrounding me. Tell them they can, T. Brooks was silent. Then he asked the question I had been avoiding. Can you control the ship? I looked at the sphere. I don't think so. The golden patterns began moving again. The ship seemed to respond. A doorway opened ahead. Beyond it was a command chamber. And for the first time, I understood what Astra 9 wanted from me. It wasn't asking me to command it. It was asking me to decide whether humanity was ready to inherit it. The command chamber was larger than the entire interior of my shuttle. I stepped inside slowly. There was no chair, no controls, no windows, only a circular platform surrounded by black walls and hundreds of thin golden lines. The moment I entered, the lines illuminated. A shape appeared in the center of the room. ASTRA 9. Not the physical ship, a representation of it. Then the image changed. I saw the civilization that had built the vessel. They called themselves the Averran. I learned that from the translation appearing beneath the memory. They had existed for almost 20,000 years before abandoning their home. They had crossed most of the galaxy. They had studied thousands of species. They had discovered technologies that made the Council's greatest achievements look primitive. And then they found the silence. The memory showed their scientists discovering it beyond the edge of their mapped space. At first, they believed it was a natural phenomenon. Then civilizations began disappearing, not dying, stopping. Progress ended. Communication failed. New technologies became impossible to develop. Species that had once reached the stars slowly became trapped on their own worlds. The Averran fought it. They failed. They built weapons. They failed. They moved their populations. They failed. Eventually, they understood the truth. The silence did not attack civilizations. It surrounded them. It waited. And whenever a civilization reached a certain level of development, it began removing possibilities. The Averran built Astra 9 as their final attempt to preserve everything they had learned. But they knew they could not save themselves. So they created a test. Astra 9 would wait. It would examine every species that reached it. It would reject those driven by conquest. It would reject those seeking power. It would reject those who wanted the ship for themselves. It would wait for a civilization that understood survival differently. The memory changed again. I saw hundreds of species approach the vessel. Kings, admirals, scientists, warriors. None were accepted. Then I saw Earth. The image showed humanity during its earliest years. Wars, famines, disasters, extinction events. The Averran had studied all of it. They had watched humanity survive things that should have ended us. Then the image showed our first satellites, our first nuclear weapons, our first spacecraft, our first colony. The final scene showed me standing before ASTRA 9. The ancient intelligence spoke. Your species was not selected because it was the strongest. I stared at the words. Another appeared. It was selected because it continued. I finally understood. The ship had not been waiting for me. It had been waiting for humanity. I was simply the first human who had arrived. Then the chamber doors opened. Behind them was a command console. For the first time, it displayed one word. Captain. The word remained above the console. Captain. I didn't touch it. I thought about the Franklin outside. About Commander Brooks. About the Council. About the millions of beings who would want this ship if they understood what it contained. Astra 9 waited. It didn't pressure me. That was the first thing about the ancient intelligence that I understood. It didn't command. It presented choices. I stepped closer to the console. A display appeared. 3 options. Transfer control. Remain independent. Continue the mission. I stared at them. The first option would give Astra 9 to the Council. The second would leave the ship alone. The third would take it beyond known space. I selected the third. Nothing happened. Then the console displayed a question. Why? I considered the answer. Because if the silence is real, someone needs to find out what it is. The ship remained silent. I added, and because the people who built you are gone. The golden lines brightened. Someone should finish what they started. The console accepted my answer. Outside, the Franklin moved closer. Commander Brooks contacted me again. Ethan, I need you to come back aboard. Why? The Council has ordered us to secure ASTRA-9. They, afraid of it. They, afraid of what they done, understand. I looked at the console. That's reasonable. Brooks was silent. Then he said, you done, understand what you, standing inside. No. Then come out. I looked around the chamber. I done, think I can. Can, I done, think the ship wants me to. Another pause. Ethan, ship's done, want things. I almost smiled. This one does. Brooks disconnected. Astra 9 began displaying information across the chamber. Power reserves, navigation systems, weapons, life support, long-range sensors. The list continued. I expected weapons to dominate the display. They didn't. Astra 9 had defensive systems, but almost everything was dedicated to preservation. Archives, factories, medical systems, agricultural chambers, scientific laboratories. It wasn't built to conquer worlds. It was built to carry a civilization. Then I saw something that made me stop. A section labeled passenger capacity. The number appeared. 8,400,000,000. 8,400,000,000. The population of Earth. Almost exactly. I stared at the figure. The Averron hadn't designed Astra 9 for one species. They had designed it for us. Or for someone like us. A final message appeared. The arc is complete. Then. The choice is yours. I placed my hand against the console. I choose humanity. The ship responded. Across the system, Astra 9's engines began to glow. And every Council vessel suddenly received the same message. Humanity has been accepted. The message spread through the new Carthage system before anyone could respond. Humanity has been accepted. The Council vessels immediately began transmitting orders. Stand down. Release control. Prepare for inspection. Commander Brooks ignored all of them. Ethan, he said, I need you to understand what happens next. I know. No, you don't. His voice was unusually quiet. If that vessel leaves this system without Council authorization, every major power in the galaxy will consider it a threat. I looked at the console. They already do. We can still prevent this. How? Come back aboard the Franklin. I thought about the command chamber. About the Averron. About the billions of empty worlds I had seen in those memories. No. Brooks exhaled slowly. Then I am under orders to stop you. I looked toward the transparent wall. The Franklin had positioned itself directly between ASTRA-9 and open space. Its weapons were active. I opened a communication channel. Commander, I am listening. Dawn, fire. I can, promise that. Then move. Ethan, move the ship. Silence. Then Brooks said something I didn't, expect. Why? I looked at the displays surrounding me. Because I finally understood what Astra 9 was. Not a weapon. Not a prize. Not a relic. A warning. Because you don't know what you pointing your guns at. Brooks remained silent. Then a new alarm appeared. Astra 9 had detected something. Far beyond New Carthage, the same darkness I had seen in the memory was moving. The silence. It had noticed the signal. The ship's engines increased power. Every system aboard Astra 9 activated simultaneously. The vessel expanded its defensive field around the research platform, protecting every ship in the system, including the Franklin. Brooks noticed. You could have destroyed us. I know, but you protected us. I didn't do it. The ancient intelligence answered through the console. The inheritor has not yet learned the difference between power and purpose. I stared at the message. Then another appeared. That will change. The stars began bending outside the hull. ASTRA-9 was preparing to jump. But before it could, the Council transmitted one final command. Vessel Astra 9. You're ordered to remain in New Carthage system. The command vanished. Astra 9 replied. Order denied. Then every engine ignited. The ancient vessel moved, not like a modern ship. Space itself seemed to move around it. The stars stretched into lines. The darkness opened ahead, and Astra 9 prepared to leave known space. I looked at the console. One final question appeared. Are you ready? I thought about the Council, the Franklin, Earth, the empty worlds. Then I answered, yes. The ship entered the darkness. And behind us, somewhere beyond the edge of the galaxy, something answered. The stars returned slowly. I expected the usual transition after a faster-than-light jump. There was none. Astra 9 simply emerged from the darkness and stopped. I looked through the command chamber. Nothing. No stars. No planets. No navigation markers. Only an endless black field scattered with faint points of distant light. The console displayed our location. Unknown region. Then another message appeared. Beyond Council cartography. I stared at it. Where are we? Astra 9 answered. Where the others stopped. A map appeared. It showed the galaxy behind us. Then it showed the region ahead. There were thousands of civilizations marked across the map. Most were ancient. Most were gone. At the edge of the map, a single cluster remained illuminated. Then the lights began disappearing. 1, 2, 10, hundreds. I watched entire civilizations vanish from the display. Not physically. Their signals were disappearing. ASTRA-9 was showing me what was happening now. The silence was moving. I felt something I hadn't experienced since entering the ship. Fear. Not panic. Not terror. Something colder. The understanding that there was an enemy so large that even the ancient Averin had abandoned entire regions of the galaxy rather than fight it. How do we stop it? The answer appeared. We do not know. I stared at the words. For the first time, Astra 9 sounded uncertain. Then the ship displayed the Averin's final records. They had discovered that the silence was not a creature, not an empire, not a machine. It was a phenomenon capable of interacting with intelligent civilizations. It suppressed discoveries. It interfered with communication. It altered probability. Every time a civilization approached a technological breakthrough, the silence created failure. A reactor exploded. A scientist died. A transmission was corrupted. A war began at exactly the wrong moment. A civilization would never know it was being stopped. It would simply believe it had failed. The Averin had called this process the quieting. They had spent centuries searching for a defense. Eventually, they found one possibility. Humanity. I looked at the record. The Averin had studied Earth because our history contained something they had not found anywhere else. Repeated collapse. Repeated recovery. Repeated destruction. Repeated rebuilding. The silence had touched humanity before. We had simply never recognized it. Our wars, disasters, pandemics, technological setbacks, even our near extinctions had created countless opportunities for the quieting. And humanity had continued anyway. Astra 9 displayed one final Averin statement. We could not defeat the silence. Then, we could only wait for a species that had already learned how to live with it. I sat in silence. The ship had not chosen humanity because we were stronger. It had chosen us because we had spent our entire history surviving things we could not control. Then a warning appeared. Silence contact. 0 hours 17 minutes and 42 seconds. 17 minutes. I stood. Take us there. The engines began to charge. I looked into the darkness ahead. For 30,000 years, Astra 9 had waited. Now it was moving again. And this time, I was aboard. The countdown reached 0. Astra 9 entered the darkness. I expected alarms. There were none. The ship simply moved forward, and the stars around us disappeared. Then something appeared ahead. Not a ship, not a planet, a shape, an absence in space. The silence. It covered thousands of kilometers, swallowing light and distorting every sensor Astra 9 possessed. For the first time, the ancient vessel hesitated. Then the console displayed coordinates. I understood. We weren't running from it. We were going toward it. I placed my hand on the controls. Where are we going? Astra 9 answered with a single destination. The coordinates led beyond the known galaxy, toward the last surviving trace of the Averron. I stared at the display and remembered the Council's original order. Recover anything useful. If possible, begin dismantling. I almost laughed. They sent me here to scrap a ship. The console illuminated beneath my hand. The engines began to rise. Looks like the ship had other plans. Astra 9 accelerated. The darkness opened. And somewhere beyond the edge of everything humanity had ever known, something answered our signal. I did not know what waited there. I did not know whether we would survive. But for the first time, I understood why the Averron had waited 30,000 years. They had not been waiting for a hero. They had been waiting for someone willing to continue. I looked into the unknown. Then Astra 9 carried me forward.